I had just concluded a demanding 3-day business trip to Chicago. The entire experience had been exhausting, endless meetings, late nights spent strategizing over drinks, and barely a moment to catch my breath. By the time I boarded my flight home, fatigue weighed heavily on me, but relief was just as strong. My plan was simple: surprise Emily by arriving a day earlier than expected and finally share a quiet evening together, something we hadn't done in far too long. The plane landed at 4:45 in the evening. I hadn't mentioned my early return to Emily. We used to enjoy surprising each other with spontaneous gestures, little efforts to keep the spark alive. But lately, that spark felt one-sided. Emily had grown distant. She wasn't unkind, just detached. Conversations that once stretched for hours had dwindled into brief, polite exchanges. Still, I reassured myself that it was just a rough patch, perhaps due to work stress. I reached home shortly after 6. As I pulled into the street, something felt off. The driveway was packed with vehicles I didn't recognize, some even spilling onto the road. A faint thumping of music pulsed from inside. My stomach clenched. A party? On a Thursday night? Dragging my suitcase behind me, I stepped through the front door, only to freeze in place. The living room, once a space filled with our shared memories, was now overflowing with strangers. People lounged across the couch, drinks in hand, laughter filling the air. The coffee table was cluttered with beer bottles and wine glasses, the whole scene reminiscent of a wild college party. And then, in the center of it all, was Emily. She stood near the fireplace, clad in a short black dress I had never seen before. Her back was turned to me, laughter spilling effortlessly from her lips. One of her hands rested lightly on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. He was leaning in, too close, far too close. A hush settled over the room as people took notice of me standing there. Emily turned, and for the briefest moment, her face revealed everything: shock, panic. But just as quickly, she smoothed her expression into a forced smile. "Jason," she greeted, her voice unnaturally high-pitched. "You're home early?" Behind her, the man shifted uncomfortably. Emily didn't move to hug me, didn't offer an explanation. Instead, she stepped forward, subtly placing herself between me and the stranger, as if she could erase what I had just witnessed. "I can see that," I responded coolly, my eyes scanning the room. "What's going on?" "It's just a small gathering," she said, her tone light, too casual. "You know, a few friends from—" "From where, exactly?" I cut in, my voice sharper than I intended. "Because I don't recognize a single person here. And I certainly don't know him." I gestured toward the man, who now seemed eager to disappear, inching toward the door like someone caught in the act. Emily's expression hardened. "Can we not do this right now? You're making a scene." A bitter chuckle escaped me. "A scene? You think I'm the one making a scene?" I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "I've been gone for 3 days, Emily. 3 days. And I walk into this." Her eyes darted around the room, clearly uneasy with the growing attention. She grabbed my arm, fingers pressing hard against my skin. "Let's talk upstairs," she hissed, her teeth clenched. "No," I said firmly, shaking her off. "We'll talk right here. In front of your friends." The room had fallen completely silent. Every pair of eyes was on us, but I didn't care. My focus was locked on Emily, waiting for an answer. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, the front door slammed shut. I turned just in time to see the man bolting down the driveway, his car speeding off into the night. And with that, the fragile illusion shattered. "You want to explain who that was?" I asked, my voice tight with anger and betrayal. Her response wasn't remorse. It wasn't an explanation. It was a command. "Get out," she said, her tone ice cold. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. "What?" "You heard me," she said, her gaze unwavering. "This is my house, and I don't need you ruining the night for everyone. Just go." Disbelief crashed over me. This wasn't the woman I had married. This was someone else entirely. But then, something inside me shifted. Reaching into my coat pocket, I pulled out a folded piece of paper, a letter I had been carrying, though I hadn't planned to use it that night. It contained the results of a private investigation I had initiated during my trip. I had sensed something was off for weeks, and now, standing here, I was grateful I had trusted my instincts. Without a word, I handed her the letter. She unfolded it, her eyes scanning the contents. As she read, her face turned pale, all traces of confidence vanishing. The color drained from her cheeks, replaced by something else, fear and fury. Her voice dropped to a whisper, sharp with anger. What did you do?" "I found the truth," I said simply. "Now it's your turn to decide how much of it you want these people to know." Her reaction was swift and venomous. Snatching the letter, she crumpled it in her fist. And then, without another word, she slammed the door in my face. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't going to end quietly. The echo of the door slamming rang in my ears as I stood motionless on the porch, my suitcase still in hand. For a brief moment, I was frozen in place, my body tense, breath coming in shallow gasps. The door had just been slammed in my face, inside my own house. And the worst part? No one inside had even tried to stop her. Instead, I could hear hushed murmurs and uneasy chuckles as if they were determined to pretend nothing had happened. The sheer audacity of it all burned within me, a fire igniting in my chest. But I didn't turn away. I refused to walk away from this conversation. Not tonight. Not after everything I had discovered. My thoughts flickered back to the letter she had crumpled in her fist. That letter was my weapon, and I wasn't done using it. The decision to hire a private investigator had been a last-minute impulse, fueled by weeks of unease and a nagging gut feeling I couldn't ignore. In less than 7 days, the detective had sent me a file packed with evidence, photos, timestamps, receipts, all proving what I had feared most. The man she was with tonight? He wasn't the first, just the most recent. Suddenly, the door swung open. Emily stood there, her face a mask of cold fury. Without hesitation, she stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind her, ensuring no one inside could overhear our conversation. "You had me followed?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "I did," I admitted, keeping my tone even, though my insides were anything but calm. My hands trembled slightly, my heartbeat hammering so hard it felt like it might burst through my ribs. And guess what? My instincts were right. Her eyes flickered toward the window, scanning to see if anyone was watching. "This is low, Jason. Even for you. For me." My voice rose with disbelief. "You're the one sneaking around, betraying me, and somehow I'm the bad guy?" She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe, a smirk curling at her lips. "You know what your problem is? You're paranoid. You always have been. You create problems in your head, and in doing so, you've made this marriage miserable." Her words hit like a slap. "Miserable?" I repeated, still stunned. "Emily, you're cheating on me. You invited some stranger into our home. You threw a party while I was away. And somehow, I'm the issue here." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. It was just a party. You're acting like I committed some kind of crime." A bitter laugh escaped me. "A party?" I echoed, stepping forward. "What about the hotel receipts? The late-night meetings? The photos of you with that guy at the coffee shop last month? Were those just innocent fun too?" For a brief second, she paled, but she recovered quickly, her expression hardening. "You're pathetic," she spat, voice dripping with disdain. "Digging through my life like some obsessive stalker. Maybe if you put half as much effort into making me happy as you do playing detective, we wouldn't be in this mess." I let out a hollow laugh. "Making you happy? Is that really your excuse? That I wasn't entertaining enough, so you decided to go behind my back?" She tilted her chin up defiantly. "Believe what you want," she said, turning toward the door. "I don't owe you an explanation." Before she could slip back inside, I reached out and grabbed her wrist, not forcefully, just enough to stop her. She froze, her gaze sharp as a blade. "We're not done," I said, my voice firm. "You're going to tell me the truth. Every last bit of it. And then, Emily, you're going to explain why you think I should be the one to leave." She yanked her arm free, her expression icy. "You want the truth, Jason," she said, her voice sharp and unyielding. "Fine. The truth is, I've been done with this marriage for years. You're dull. Predictable. Everything revolves around you, and honestly, I didn't think you'd even notice." Her words hit me like a wrecking ball, knocking the air from my lungs. I opened my mouth to respond, but she didn't give me the chance. "And another thing," she pressed on, stepping closer, her voice growing louder. "I don't regret it. Not a single bit. So go ahead, wave your little letter around, stew in your righteous anger, do whatever you need to. Because I'm done." With that, she spun around and strode back inside, slamming the door shut behind her. This time, I didn't follow. I remained standing on the porch, my mind racing. Her words echoed in my head like a relentless drumbeat. "I'm not sorry. I don't regret a single thing." Something inside me shifted. The sting of betrayal, the heartbreak, it was all still there. But now it was joined by something colder. If she thought I would just slink away quietly, she was dead wrong. I didn't move from the porch. Not yet. My thoughts churned, emotions colliding like storm clouds. I felt humiliated, deceived, but above all, furious. "I'm not sorry. I don't regret a single thing." She wanted me gone. Fine. But not before I tore apart the fantasy world she had built for herself. I stepped toward the door, hesitating for only a moment. Inside, muffled music and laughter filled the space. The thought of her returning to her party, laughing and drinking as if nothing had happened, sent a fresh wave of anger surging through me. I pushed the door open and walked inside. The room plunged into silence as every pair of eyes turned toward me. Emily, who had been standing by the kitchen counter with a glass of wine in hand, froze mid-laugh. The smug confidence on her face flickered for just a second, giving way to something sharper, irritation. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass before she placed it down with a deliberate clink. "What do you think you're doing?" she asked, her voice low but edged with warning. I met her gaze without hesitation, my voice steady and clear. "The real question, Emily, is what are you doing? Hosting a party in the house we built together, while sneaking around with someone else." A heavy stillness gripped the room. Every guest stood motionless, their attention locked on us. The weight of their stares only made the tension more suffocating. Emily's face flushed, but she quickly composed herself, forcing a dismissive smirk. "Jason, stop embarrassing yourself," she said, her tone coated in condescension. "Why don't you take a moment to cool off?" I took a step forward, shaking my head. "Oh, I'm plenty cool," I countered, slipping my phone from my pocket and holding it up for emphasis. "In fact, I've got proof. Would you like to see it, Emily? Or should I let your friends take a look?" Her confident facade wavered for a split second, her eyes widening ever so slightly before she recovered. "You're being ridiculous," she muttered through gritted teeth. "Am I?" I turned to the room, my voice carrying over the murmurs that had begun spreading among the guests. Did she happen to mention her little getaway at the Marriott last month? Or how she conveniently canceled our dinner plans because she was supposedly working late? Except, of course, she wasn't working, she was with him. A wave of gasps and whispered conversations rippled through the crowd. Emily's carefully constructed image was beginning to crack, and I wasn't going to stop now. "Jason, that's enough," she snapped, her voice rising in frustration. I shook my head, my tone firm. "No, I think I'm just getting started." I took another step forward, my words deliberate. "While I was away, I hired a private investigator. Turns out, Emily has been keeping herself very busy. Lunches, late-night meetups, even bringing him here when she thought no one was watching. So, tell them, Emily, why don't you go ahead and share the truth? Or should I?" Her expression hardened, her fists clenching at her sides. The entire room seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for her response. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled with fury. "You're pathetic," she spat. "You think you can walk in here and humiliate me? These people are my friends, Jason. They know me. They'll believe me over your ridiculous accusations." I stepped even closer, lowering my voice just enough for the impact to land. "Then why did the guy you were cozying up to earlier bolt out of here the second I walked in?" The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, guests exchanging nervous glances. Emily's confidence was slipping, and she could feel it. "This isn't worth my time," she muttered, snatching up her wine glass and turning toward the kitchen. "Oh, it's worth mine," I shot back, following her. "You wanted me gone? Fine. But not before everyone here knows exactly who you are." I turned to the guests, letting my voice carry. "And in case anyone was wondering, the man she was with tonight isn't the first. She's been doing this for months. While I was out of town working to build a life for us, she was here, turning our home into something else entirely." A woman in a sequin top let out a shocked gasp. A man near the doorway shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. "Jason, enough." Emily's voice cracked as she slammed her glass down onto the counter. I exhaled, my voice steady now. "No, Emily. Enough is you lying to my face, disrespecting everything we built, and expecting me to stand by and take it. Enough is thinking there wouldn't be consequences." Her expression twisted with frustration as she pushed past me, making a beeline for the stairs. "I'm done with this," she snapped. "Good." I called after her, not bothering to hide the finality in my voice. "Because so am I." She disappeared upstairs, leaving the room in an uncomfortable silence. Guests exchanged uncertain glances, and one by one, they began making excuses to leave. I didn't stop them. Let them go. Let them carry this story with them. I turned back toward the door, where my suitcase still sat untouched. My hands trembled slightly, but my resolve was stronger than ever. She wanted me gone? Fine. I would leave, but not before I finished what I came here to do. I didn't let her vanish upstairs without following. Leaving her alone to twist the truth and craft her next move wasn't an option. If this night was going to end, it would be on my terms. The stairs creaked beneath me as I ascended, each step heavy with the weight of the past. I couldn't help but remember all the moments we had shared in this house, lazy Sundays, Christmas mornings, late-night conversations. But now, every single one of those memories felt tainted. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open without knocking. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, hunched over her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. She didn't even acknowledge my presence. "What?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Texting him for advice on how to handle this mess?" She exhaled sharply, still not looking up. "You've made your point, Jason. Now get out." I took a step inside, shutting the door behind me. "No," I said firmly. "We're not done." Finally, she set her phone aside and turned to face me. Her expression was cold, her eyes unreadable. "What do you want from me?" "An apology." Her lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Fine. I'm sorry, Jason." Emily's words dripped with venom, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. "I'm sorry you couldn't keep me interested. I'm sorry you were so obsessed with playing the perfect husband that you didn't even notice how miserable I was." Her coldness was staggering, but I refused to react. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I crossed my arms, my expression unreadable. "Unhappy," I repeated, my voice steady. "And you think that justifies everything? The lies, the betrayal, the complete lack of respect? If you were so miserable, why not just leave?" A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Leave," she mocked. "And let you play the victim? No, thanks." I studied her, searching for the woman I once knew, but she was gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. Shaking my head, I exhaled sharply. "You've got some nerve," I said, my tone edged with disbelief. "I was nothing but loyal to you, Emily. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me." She rolled her eyes as if my words meant nothing. "Loyalty means nothing when there's no passion, Jason. You're predictable. Boring. I needed more." "More?" I shot back, my voice rising. "So you destroy our marriage, our life, just for what? A thrill? A few fleeting moments of excitement? That's pathetic." Her eyes flashed with fury as she straightened her posture, her stance defiant. "And you think you're any better than me?" she snapped. "You're controlling, needy, so wrapped up in your perfect little world that you never even noticed I was drowning." "You didn't talk to me," I countered, my frustration boiling over. "You never gave me a chance to fix anything. Instead, you went behind my back and blew up our lives." "That's on you, Emily. Not me." A thick silence settled over the room, heavy with tension. Then she smirked, a cruel, calculated expression that made my blood run cold. "You think you've won, don't you?" she sneered. "You humiliated me in front of my friends. Made yourself look like some kind of hero. But let me tell you something, Jason. You're not walking away from this untouched. You want war? Fine. Let's go to war." Her words hit like a slap, devoid of remorse. There was no regret in her eyes, only defiance. I took a step forward, my voice low and cold. "You really think this is a game?" I said. "Let me make one thing clear, Emily. I don't lose." Without another word, I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. My heart pounded, adrenaline rushing through my veins, but I didn't stop. Heading downstairs, I grabbed my suitcase and stepped outside. The night air was crisp against my skin as I stood in the driveway, staring at the house that had once been my home. She thought she had won, thought she had the upper hand by forcing me out, by seizing control of the situation. But she had no idea what was coming next. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. I sat in my car, the engine idling as my mind raced. Leaving now, retreating, would be exactly what Emily expected. She wanted me to disappear, to let her control the story, to let her play the victim while I faded into the background. That wasn't going to happen. I had the evidence, the letter, the photos, the receipts. I knew exactly who she was. And now, I had a purpose. This wasn't about saving our marriage anymore. That was beyond repair. This was about making sure she didn't walk away from this unscathed. The first move came instinctively. I picked up my phone and dialed the private investigator. He answered on the second ring. "Jason," he greeted, his voice calm and professional. "What's the update?" "It's time," I said simply. A brief pause, then a quiet, understanding response. "Understood." The investigator had everything compiled, every piece of information neatly organized. Photographs, videos, text logs from the burner phone she thought I'd never find. I instructed him to package everything and send it to my lawyer immediately. Next, I called my attorney. Aaron was sharp, ruthless, and had handled my business dealings for years. I barely needed to explain. "I'll start drafting the paperwork," he said without hesitation. "Divorce. Full asset protection," I confirmed. "And have a restraining order ready in case she tries anything. I'm not giving her a single opportunity to manipulate this situation." "Understood," Aaron replied. "I'll have everything ready by morning. Stay away from the house until this is settled. Let me handle it." I hung up, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer adrenaline coursing through me. This was a side of myself I had never confronted before. Cold, calculating, precise. But I wasn't finished yet. Opening my email, I began composing a message. The recipients? Every single guest she had invited to her party. Her closest friends. Her family. Subject line, "The truth about Emily." The message itself was brief. Attached were the most damning pieces of evidence. Photos of her with someone else at a hotel bar, a hotel booking under a false name, and a text exchange where she shamelessly boasted, "I finally have the freedom to do what I want without Jason knowing." The message was blunt and unapologetic. To everyone concerned, "I regret that this has to be shared so publicly, but I believe the truth must be known. Emily has spent months deceiving me, breaking the trust we built, and disrespecting our marriage. While I was away, working to provide for our family, she was entertaining other men, not just in our home, but in hotels and wherever else she thought she could get away with it." Attached, you'll find proof of her actions. I have no interest in any further discussion or reconciliation. This is simply to ensure no one is misled by whatever version of events she may choose to tell. Regards, Jason. It was explosive, but I didn't care. She had humiliated me, shattered our marriage, and treated me like I was nothing. If she wanted a battle, she had just gotten one. Without hesitation, I pressed send and watched as the email vanished into the digital ether. For the first time that night, I felt a sliver of relief, not peace, because there was no peace in any of this, but the satisfaction of knowing I wasn't sitting idly by, allowing her to control the narrative. Without another thought, I started my car and drove toward a hotel downtown. My mind was already racing ahead, thinking about the consequences and what the next day would bring. Whatever Emily had thought of me before, she was about to witness a version of Jason she had never encountered. And I wouldn't stop until her perfectly crafted world collapsed around her. The morning arrived in the cold, impersonal silence of the hotel room. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, the weight of the previous night's actions hit me like a freight train. But rather than regret, I felt something unusual, clarity. This was the beginning of the end, and for once, I held all the power. I grabbed my phone and checked the damage. The email had done its job. My inbox was overflowing with responses, some filled with shock, others with disbelief. A few of Emily's closest friends had responded with veiled outrage, their loyalty to her evident. I had expected as much. There were those who would rally to defend her, but others were already beginning to waver. One reply caught my attention. It was from Chloe, Emily's best friend since high school. "Jason, I don't know what to say. I knew she was unhappy, but I never imagined this. Please understand that I don't support what she's done. If you need to talk, I'm here." It was brief, carefully worded, exactly the kind of response I expected from Chloe. She had always been the mediator, the one who avoided taking hard stances. She wouldn't publicly turn against Emily, but she also wasn't about to defend the indefensible. I took note of it and moved on, shifting my focus to the bigger picture. Social media was already buzzing. Emily's Instagram, once a pristine display of picture-perfect moments, had fallen into eerie silence. Meanwhile, the comment sections on her latest posts were beginning to fill with subtle jabs and vague questions. Then my phone buzzed again, an incoming call from Aaron, my lawyer. "Things are moving quickly," he said, wasting no time. "The divorce petition is ready to be filed. I'll need your signature by noon. As for your assets, your accounts are secure, and we've flagged the house. If she tries anything, we'll know immediately." "Good," I replied, leaning back into the stiff chair. "Anything else?" "She's not going to take this lying down, Jason. People like her don't just surrender. Be ready for a fight." I hung up, his words lingering in my mind. Retaliation. Of course, Emily wouldn't go quietly. But I was prepared. An hour later, I was on the road again, heading back to the house. I didn't intend to stay long, just long enough to grab a few belongings. As I pulled into the driveway, I noted with relief that Emily's car was gone. Good. Stepping inside, I was met with the aftermath of the night before. Empty glasses, discarded napkins, and the faint, stale scent of alcohol hung in the air, a testament to her recklessness. I moved quickly, heading straight upstairs. My suitcase was still exactly where I had left it, untouched in the corner of the bedroom. I wasted no time, packing efficiently clothes, important documents, a few personal items. But as I pulled open a drawer, something caught my eye. Beneath a pile of her scarves, a small, unmarked box was tucked away. Curious, I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a burner phone. My pulse quickened as I powered it on, the screen flickering to life. No password. Within moments, I was scrolling through a stream of messages, photos, and call logs. It was worse than I had imagined. Conversations with at least 3 different men. Flirtatious texts. Incriminating photos. Plans to meet, specific locations, specific times. But one message stood out among the rest. I think he's onto me. If he finds out, it's over. We need to be careful. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. She knew. She had known I was suspicious. And instead of stopping, instead of coming clean, she had doubled down on her betrayal. A sharp vibration in my pocket jolted me from my thoughts. My phone. Chloe. I answered, her voice tense and urgent. Jason, she said quickly, Emily's furious. She knows about the email, and she's talking about calling a lawyer. She's also spreading rumors, saying you've been controlling and emotionally abusive. I clenched my jaw, gripping the phone tightly. Of course, she would try to twist the narrative. At least I had been warned in advance. Thanks for the heads up. I responded curtly. Be careful, Chloe added, her tone laced with concern. She's not thinking straight, and when Emily gets like this, well, you know how she is. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I hung up and turned my attention to the burner phone. This was my proof, my undeniable evidence that her deception ran even deeper than I had imagined. I secured the small box in my bag before stepping out of the house. If Emily wanted to play dirty, she just handed me the weapon I needed to dismantle her lies. The drive back to the hotel passed in a haze. My mind was a battlefield of strategy, every possibility and countermove playing out like a game of chess. Emily thought she was ahead, but she had no idea how far I'd already planned. The burner phone was more than just proof. It was leverage. It validated every suspicion I'd harbored and painted a clear picture of her betrayal. But more than anything, it confirmed that none of this had been accidental. She knew exactly what she was doing. Back at the hotel, I settled at the small desk and began combing through the phone. The messages wove a damning timeline of infidelity. One name stood out, Chris. He appeared in nearly every conversation, his messages filled with familiarity that went far beyond casual. His photos? Calling them inappropriate would be an understatement. The messages detailed how they had tiptoed around, mocking me for being oblivious, plotting their next encounters. They even joked about the party, calling it the perfect excuse for him to be inside my house. My hands tightened into fists as I scrolled. If I had arrived just a few hours later that night, would I have walked into something even worse? Then, one message stopped me cold. Chris, when are you telling him? You said you'd end it before Christmas. Emily, I will. Just waiting for the right time. He's too distracted with work to notice anything right now. She had planned this. This wasn't some fleeting mistake or a reckless affair that got out of hand. Emily had been carefully orchestrating the end of our marriage while looking me in the eyes, pretending to be the devoted wife. My phone vibrated again, another call from Chloe. This time, I picked up. Jason, she started, her voice laced with urgency. Emily knows about the burner phone. She's panicking. She thinks you're going to use it against her. She's right, I said, my tone flat and unyielding. Chloe exhaled sharply. Look, I get that you're furious. Furious. I cut her off, my voice rising. Chloe, she humiliated me. She lied. She brought another man into our home. And now, she's trying to turn this around on me? Don't tell me to calm down. I'm not lecturing you, Chloe responded quickly. I'm warning you. Jason, when Emily is backed into a corner, she doesn't just admit defeat, she fights back. Let her, I said, my voice ice cold. I'm ready. Chloe hesitated. What exactly are you planning? You don't want to know, I replied before ending the call. The next few hours were spent preparing my next move with meticulous precision. Every message, every image, every damning piece of evidence was downloaded onto a secure drive. Copies were sent to my lawyer. I also forwarded selected screenshots to a few trusted friends, people who could vouch for me in case Emily tried to manipulate the situation. By late afternoon, everything was in place. The divorce papers were ready. The evidence was secured. Every step was set. But there was one more call I needed to make. I picked up my phone and dialed the one person Emily would never expect me to reach out to. Her mother. Jason. Linda's voice was cautious, but warm. We had always gotten along, even during the rough patches in my marriage to Emily. "Hi, Linda," I greeted, keeping my voice steady and calm. "I need to talk to you about something important." There was a brief pause. "This sounds serious." "It is," I confirmed. "I wanted you to hear this from me before Emily twists the truth. She's been unfaithful. For months. I have undeniable proof, and I'm filing for divorce." A sharp inhale came from the other end. "Oh my goodness. Jason, I don't even know what to say. Are you absolutely certain?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you. But you deserve to know the truth. No matter what Emily claims, I'm not the villain here." Silence hung in the air. When Linda finally spoke, her voice was unsteady. I don't even recognize her anymore. She's been distant, cold. I thought it was just stress, but it's more than that," I said quietly. "I just needed you to know what's really happening." "Thank you," Linda whispered. "I don't know how I'm going to face her, but thank you for telling me." As I ended the call, a strange mix of emotions washed over me. Relief that Linda believed me, but also a deeper sadness. This had spiraled far beyond just Emily and me. It was about to send shockwaves through everyone connected to us. Emily had tried to paint me as the villain, but now the tide was turning. She wanted a battle? She had no idea just how far I was willing to go. Tomorrow, I would make my next move. And when I did, the carefully crafted world Emily had built would come crashing down. The morning sunlight streamed through the hotel window, but it carried no warmth. I woke early, my mind fueled by a restless determination. Today was the day I took control. Emily had struck the match, and now it was my turn to set everything ablaze. My first call was to Aaron. I skipped any pleasantries and got straight to the point. "I need the divorce papers filed today, and file an emergency motion to freeze both the house and our joint accounts. I don't want her touching a single cent." "It's already in motion," Aaron responded smoothly. "By the end of the day, she won't be able to move a dollar without my office knowing." "Perfect," I said, but I wasn't done yet. "There's one more thing. I want to publicly distance myself from her. Release a statement. Leak it if you have to. People need to understand this is her doing, not mine." There was a brief pause on Aaron's end. "That's a bold move. It could escalate things." "That's exactly the point," I replied. By the time I ended the call, my plan was in full swing. I checked my email. Nothing from Emily, but the responses to my initial email blast kept rolling in. Most were supportive, others were more neutral, but one stood out from the rest. "Jason, you don't know me, but I thought you should be aware Emily isn't who she says she is. She's been doing this for years. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. If you need proof, let me know. I have stories." Ryan. The name was unfamiliar, but something about his tone felt genuine. "Years?" That was new. I responded immediately, asking for details. While I waited, I decided to make one last visit to the house. This wasn't about gathering my things. I was going to send a message. When I pulled into the driveway, Emily's car was right out front. I stepped out, the burner phone in my pocket, and made my way to the door. I knocked once. She answered almost instantly, her expression a storm of fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" she snapped. "I came to talk," I said and stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Emily followed me into the living room, arms crossed tightly. "You've already humiliated me enough. What more do you want?" I turned to face her, my voice calm but firm. "I need you to understand something. This isn't your game anymore. You don't control the narrative. People know who you really are now, and it's only going to get worse." She let out a scoff, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. "You're bluffing." I reached into my pocket and tossed the burner phone onto the coffee table. Her face lost color the moment she saw it. "Go ahead," I said. "Read through it. Relive every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. I've already sent copies to my lawyer and to some of your friends. They deserve to know the truth, don't you think?" Emily stared at the phone, her hands trembling slightly. Then, her anger boiled over. "You're such a coward," she hissed, her voice unsteady. You can't stand that I moved on. Do you really think ruining my reputation will fix anything? Do you actually believe people care about your little sob story? I don't care if they pity me, I replied evenly. I just want them to see you for what you are. Her mask cracked. She lunged for the phone, but I stepped between her and the table. You don't get to take the easy way out, I said. You created this mess, Emily. Now you have to live in it. She stood there, breathing heavily, her frustration barely contained. You're pathetic, she spat. I smirked. Maybe, but at least I'm not a liar. Before she could fire back, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. It was an email from Ryan. The subject line read, "Proof attached." I turned the screen toward Emily, my grin widening as I opened the message. Looks like your past is catching up with you, I said as I scrolled through the attached photos and messages. Her face twisted in alarm. Who is that? Who sent you this? Someone you burned before me, I said, tucking my phone away. And it looks like your list of enemies is longer than I expected. For the first time, the confident, manipulative Emily faltered. Her expression shifted from anger to something closer to fear. Jason, she said, her voice suddenly soft, almost pleading. Please. We can fix this. Let's just talk. No, I said, my voice cold as steel. We're past talking. You wanted a war, Emily? Now you've got one. I turned and walked out without looking back. This wasn't just a falling apart, it was a reckoning. As I stepped outside, Emily's desperate plea echoed in my mind. Please, we can fix this. But there was no sincerity in it. It wasn't remorse. It was survival instinct. She could feel the walls closing in, and for once, she wasn't the one holding the reins. Good. I got into my car, took a deep breath, and reopened Ryan's email. The attachments were damning screenshots of conversations, incriminating photos, even voice recordings. His story was all too familiar. Deception, betrayal, manipulation. Emily had done this before, just as carelessly as she was trying to do it now. But the part that stood out most was the final line in his message. She always underestimated me, but I kept everything. People like her always think they'll get away with it. It struck a nerve. Emily had underestimated me, just like so many others had. I responded to Ryan, expressing my gratitude and asking if he'd be willing to speak with my lawyer. His reply came almost instantly. Absolutely. Just tell me when and where. With every new piece of evidence, my case was becoming more airtight. But at this point, it wasn't just about the legal fight. It was about ensuring that Emily couldn't twist her lies into yet another fresh start. As the day progressed, the fallout became more evident. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, texts and calls from mutual friends poured in, many of them furious after learning the truth about Emily. Mark, man, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If you need anything, just say the word. Laura, I honestly don't know what to say. I always had a weird feeling about her, but now it all makes sense. Even Chloe reached out again, this time with urgency. Chloe, she's spiraling, Jason. She's calling everyone, trying to control the story. She told me you're making everything up just to ruin her life. A bitter laugh escaped me. Let her try. I had more than enough proof to expose her lies 10 times over. Chloe hesitated before adding, you're not wrong. But be careful. She's unpredictable when she feels cornered. I appreciated the warning, even if it left an uneasy feeling lingering in my mind. Later in the afternoon, Aaron called with an update. We've officially filed the paperwork, he informed me. The house and accounts are frozen, and the divorce petition is solid. She won't be able to wiggle out of this one. Good, I replied. And the burner phone evidence? Already submitted. Combined with Ryan's emails and the timeline we've put together, it's going to be tough for her to play the victim. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of satisfaction. But I knew this was far from over. As evening approached, a text from an unknown number flashed across my screen. You're playing a dangerous game, Jason. Walk away while you still can. A wave of unease passed through me, though I didn't need to guess who sent it. The tone reeked of desperation, one last attempt to intimidate me. I kept my response short and unwavering. Nice try, Emily. See you in court. Without hesitation, I blocked the number. That night, as I sat alone in my hotel room, my mind drifted to the life Emily and I had built together. The trips, the milestones, the quiet moments that once felt real. Now, they seemed like an elaborate performance, a carefully constructed illusion she had spent years perfecting. But illusions only last until someone decides to look a little closer. I picked up the burner phone once more, staring at the screen. In a way, it had become a symbol, a testament to her overconfidence and my determination. Her carefully crafted world was crumbling, and I was just getting started. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone was flooded with notifications, calls, texts, emails, and a flood of social media alerts. Emily had made her move. The first sign was a lengthy Facebook post she had written, dripping with dramatics and faux vulnerability. I never thought I'd have to do this, but I can't stay silent anymore. Jason has been spreading lies about me, trying to turn people against me. He's always been controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. Yes, I made mistakes, but no one deserves this kind of treatment. To those who truly know me, thank you for standing by my side. I need you now more than ever. The comments were divided. Some of her friends and family immediately rallied behind her, echoing her claims and portraying me as the villain. But others, especially mutual friends, weren't so quick to buy into her narrative. Some asked pointed questions, while others expressed skepticism. I wasn't shocked by her approach. This was classic Emily, twisting the truth, playing the victim, banking on the fact that most people wouldn't dig too deep. But this time, I was ready. I called Aaron to update him. She's going public, I said. She's accusing me of emotional abuse. His response was measured. We expected this. Just stick to the facts. The more she exaggerates, the easier it will be to disprove her in court. After our call, I knew I needed to respond. But I wasn't going to engage in a war of words. Instead, I drafted a statement that was calm, direct, and backed by facts. Many of you have seen Emily's recent post. While she is entitled to her perspective, I want to clarify a few things. The issues in our marriage were due to her repeated infidelity, which I have proof of. This isn't about control or manipulation, it's about accountability. I have filed for divorce, and in time, the truth will come out. I appreciate the support from those who have stood by me. Attached to the post was a single screenshot, one of the burner phone messages where Emily had joked about deceiving me. It wasn't explicit, but it was enough to make people think twice. The reaction was immediate. My inbox flooded with messages, some from people offering support, others in disbelief that Emily had stooped this low. But then, something unexpected happened. Around noon, I received an email from Ryan. He had taken it upon himself to dig deeper into Emily's past, uncovering even more damaging secrets than he had anticipated. Among them was solid proof that she had once embezzled funds from a small nonprofit where she had volunteered years ago. Additionally, he found legal records revealing that a former employer had sued her for breaching a contract. As he scrolled through the documents, disbelief washed over him. This is worse than I thought, he murmured to himself. Without hesitation, he forwarded the findings to Aaron, who wasted no time in calling him back. This changes everything, Aaron stated, his voice sharp with urgency. If we can verify this information, we're no longer just talking about a divorce. She might be facing criminal charges. The weight of that possibility settled heavily in his chest. Emily had always been reckless, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. He made his decision instantly. Do it, he instructed. Confirm everything and add it to the case. By midday, Emily's carefully crafted online narrative was starting to fall apart. Her recent Facebook post, which had painted her as the victim, was being scrutinized. People were questioning inconsistencies, pointing out contradictions she couldn't easily explain. The harder she tried to spin the story in her favor, the more obvious her lies became. A message from Chloe lit up his phone. She's losing control. People are seeing through her lies. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. His response was short but firm. I will. That evening, another email arrived, this time from the private investigator. He had successfully tracked down Chris, the man from the party, and uncovered the truth. Emily had led Chris on, making him believe they had a future together, promising him they would be together once she got rid of Jason. The most damning revelation? Chris had only recently discovered that Emily was already married. The investigator had attached Chris's official statement, along with a series of text messages from Emily. One particular message stood out. Don't worry about Jason. He's too dumb to figure anything out. The words burned, but they also strengthened his resolve. He wasn't clueless. He wasn't blind to what was happening. And now, for the first time in a long while, he had control. Emily's web of deception was collapsing faster than he had expected. Her lies were catching up with her. The evidence was stacking against her, and those who once stood by her side were beginning to distance themselves. The following day, he and Aaron would submit an amended petition, complete with all the new information. Emily had wanted a battle, but she hadn't anticipated drowning in it. He wasn't going to stop until she had nothing left to hold on to. The storm intensified the next morning. Desperate to maintain her crumbling facade, Emily scrambled to regain control of the narrative. Aaron called early with an update. She's filed a response, he reported. She's claiming you were emotionally abusive and that you deliberately sabotaged her career. Jason let out a tired breath, rubbing his temples. It's ridiculous, Aaron continued, especially given the evidence we've gathered. But it shows just how far she's willing to go. Let her dig herself in deeper, Jason replied. We have the burner phone, Ryan's emails, Chris's statement. Everything is lined up, right? Absolutely, Aaron confirmed. Once we present this in court, her credibility will be in shambles. But there's something else. Jason tensed. What is it? She tried to move money, Aaron said gravely. We caught her attempting to transfer funds from your joint account into a personal one. The court order froze the transaction before it went through, but it proves she's panicking. It was a reckless move, one that reinforced what he already suspected. Emily was unraveling, but this was no longer just about the divorce. The evidence of her embezzlement, uncovered by Ryan, was now a ticking time bomb. Aaron had already forwarded the information to someone in the local prosecutor's office, and it was only a matter of time before an investigation began. By late morning, Jason decided to push harder. He called Chloe. Jason, she answered cautiously. What's going on now? I need a favor, he said. Emily's still trying to twist this into my fault. I need you to talk to her friends, the ones who haven't completely taken sides yet. Show them the screenshots from the burner phone. Let them see the truth. Chloe hesitated. That's bold. Are you sure you want to go that far? Jason's tone was cold. She's already accused me of abuse. She's actively trying to destroy my reputation. I'm done playing fair. Chloe sighed. All right, I'll handle it. By early afternoon, the ripple effect had begun. Chloe sent him updates as she subtly revealed the evidence to key figures in Emily's social circle. Chloe just showed Lauren the screenshots. She's furious. Says she's done defending Emily. Chloe, Katie just called Emily a narcissist. Didn't see that one coming. While the fallout spread, Jason received another call from the private investigator. Jason, he said, I have more on the nonprofit case. Turns out, the organization never pressed charges because Emily agreed to quietly repay the stolen money. I've contacted the director. They're willing to provide a statement. Jason exhaled, shaking his head. Unbelievable. Emily's recklessness had finally caught up to her in ways she couldn't escape. That evening, the inevitable breaking point arrived. Jason sat in his hotel room, reviewing the final draft of the amended petition, when his phone buzzed. It was Emily. For a moment, he debated ignoring the call, but something made him pick up. His voice was cold when he answered. What do you want? There was a pause before she finally spoke. Her voice was unsteady, barely above a whisper. Jason, we need to talk. Face to face. I let out a dry, humorless chuckle. You have to be joking. After everything you've done. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Please, I'm serious. I made a mistake, okay? But we can fix this. Just come to the house, and I'll explain everything. There was a desperate edge to her tone, almost pleading, but I wasn't falling for it. I'll pass. I replied without emotion. If you have something to say, you can say it through your lawyer. Jason, she snapped, frustration flaring beneath her desperation. You really think you're so perfect? So innocent? Fine. Let's see how you handle it when I tell everyone who you really are. You think I don't have anything on you? That I won't use it? Go ahead, I answered, completely unshaken. But just know, Emily, with every move you make, you're only digging yourself deeper. You're out of options. Silence stretched between us for a long moment before the call abruptly ended. I set my phone down, my hands steady. This was her final attempt, a desperate grasp at control. But it was too late. The truth was already against her. Witnesses, evidence, and everything we needed to prove it. By the end of the week, Aaron and I would take everything to court. Emily's lies, her betrayals, and her financial deceptions, every last one would come to light. And when that happened, she wouldn't just lose the case. She'd lose everything. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. I sat beside Aaron, my attorney, my exterior composed though I burned inside. Across the aisle, Emily sat rigid, her carefully maintained mask of innocence beginning to crack under the weight of what was coming. The judge entered, and the proceedings commenced. Emily's lawyer wasted no time, attempting to paint me as controlling and emotionally abusive. He leaned heavily into her version of events, delivering his argument with exaggerated theatrics. But they had nothing, no real evidence, just Emily's words woven into a tangled web of deception, meant to twist the truth in her favor. Aaron, ever patient and composed, allowed them to play out their performance. And then, when it was our turn, he dismantled their case piece by piece. He started with the burner phone. "This is a key piece of evidence, Your Honor," Aaron stated, holding it up for the court to see. "It contains text messages, photographs, and call logs that clearly document the respondent's infidelity and intent to mislead my client." He read aloud selected messages, each one slicing through Emily's fabricated narrative like a blade. The courtroom was utterly silent except for the occasional hushed reaction from those in attendance. But this was only the beginning. Next came Ryan's testimony. He recounted Emily's pattern of deception, detailing how she had manipulated, lied, and betrayed him as well. His voice was calm, measured, but his words left no room for doubt. He painted a damning portrait of Emily, revealing the truth she had so desperately tried to bury. The final blow was the revelation of her financial misconduct. Aaron presented the evidence of her embezzlement from the nonprofit, outlining the inconsistencies in the financial records, the repayment agreements, and a statement from the organization's director. "Your Honor," Aaron concluded, his voice firm, "these are not the actions of someone who was mistreated or manipulated. They are the choices of an individual who has repeatedly acted with selfish disregard, causing real harm to my client and others." Emily's lawyer tried to object, but it was futile. The damage had been done. The judge's expression hardened with every new revelation, and by the time Aaron was finished, there was no question about which way the case was going. When Emily took the stand, she tried to maintain her usual confidence, but cracks showed in her facade. Her responses were vague, her tone defensive, and every attempt to shift blame fell flat. Then came Aaron's final, piercing question. "Mrs. Daniels, can you explain why you attempted to liquidate assets from your joint account after being served with a court order?" Emily faltered. I wasn't aware of the order," she stammered weakly. "Interesting," Aaron replied, his voice sharp. "Because we have a timestamp of the bank alert notifying you that the transaction was blocked." She fell silent, her face losing all color. The judge didn't deliberate long. "The evidence overwhelmingly supports the petitioner's claims," she stated, her tone decisive. "The respondent's actions demonstrate a clear pattern of dishonesty, infidelity, and financial irresponsibility. Therefore, I am granting the divorce on the grounds of adultery and awarding Mr. Daniels the majority of the marital assets, including the house." As the gavel struck, a weight lifted from my chest. Across the room, Emily sat frozen, her face a mixture of shock and barely contained fury. But I didn't spare her another look. This wasn't just a legal victory, it was my freedom. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt an unexpected blend of emotions. Relief, vindication, and maybe just a touch of sorrow for the life we had once shared. But above all, I was ready to move on. Emily had tried to ruin me, but in the end, it was her own lies that had led to her downfall. This was my closure, my fresh start. And as I stepped into the sunlight outside, one thing was certain: she would never haunt my life again.